What's up, residents? Looky here, it's my face. Godzilla makes another appearance in the new Netflix series Godzilla Singular Point. This series offered a new, more classic anime take on the legend after the last attempt of something like this in the series didn't quite hit home with the fans. This anime had a lot to live up to after the success of Legendary's Godzilla vs. Kong, and now, during a time when Godzilla may just be the most popular he has ever been, did this Toho creation live up to all the hype around kaiju at this current time in cinema history? That's what we're gonna focus on here today in this video. There's gonna be some mild spoilers, but I'm gonna do my best to not reveal all of the story, so if you wanna watch the show on your own, you can go ahead and do that and not feel like this affected your viewing experience. Remember to stomp the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all our new and upcoming videos, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get to this Godzilla Singular Point review. Before we get into the video, don't forget that you can get your very own Dangerville merch down on our Teespring store down below, so take a look if you feel like you want a new shirt or something. Alright residents, so I have to say I'm not the biggest anime fan out there, but with all the great stuff happening in the world of kaiju, I have to say I was pretty excited for Singular Point when I seen it revealed. Having any sort of official Godzilla content being created is great to help keep the interest in kaiju going, and the beast has surprisingly never had his own anime show before, which is very strange considering the franchise's origins in Japan. So on the channel over the past half year or so, we've been making a few Singular Point videos, and I was taking a look at how you, the fans and viewers, reacted to it along with YouTube's algorithm, and maybe it's because Godzilla vs. Kong was just, bringing in so much attention, but it looked like Singular Point was really getting kinda shunned, kinda overshadowed by the big hype around Godzilla vs. Kong. But regardless, I was ready to sink my teeth into this new series in hopes that it could deliver for monster fans, anime fans, and Godzilla fans. Let's start off going over the monsters of Singular Point. These creatures are the true stars of the Godzilla franchise. Sadly, Singular Point elected to not focus on the monsters, with hardly any time beyond the first few episodes being spent on them. Godzilla himself didn't even show up to the second half of the series, and even then it was just a few seconds here and there. This is sadly a continuing trend with Toho's work on Godzilla ever since Shin Godzilla was released, their last live-action Godzilla movie, which is actually quite good and something that was clearly recycled from much of the plot elements in Singular Point. Even with that massive negative right there, the creators of this series did a really good job at the monsters when they actually came on screen. The likes of Rodan and Anguirus were awesome gifts to the old school fans, and they even reused a lot of the original sounds and roars the classic monsters had, which always resulted in a nice smile on my face when I heard them. When the monsters were on screen, they really did steal the show. This is what the viewers want to see. We learned this with Godzilla vs. Kong. Epic, awesome, and thundering monsters doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. The series even made human military and firearms a focal point once again. There is really no one who does tank shooting at monsters better than Toho. And above all else, when the monsters did fight one another, or when they were attacking humanity, which was barely at all, it looked freaking cool. Godzilla deserves a segment of his own, so we're going to talk about him in a little bit. So now I feel like I need to get into the story for Singular Point so you can kind of better understand why the lack of monsters was kind of more than just a bummer. The story starts out well enough. We figure out who our heroes are and that they are going to be the ones who end up saving the day. Classic. A monster here and there shows up and they work together to stop them along with the help of Jet Jaguar. But then all the good momentum is just crushed under minute after minute. Dialogue after dialogue, episode after episode of horribly boring exposition about some whack science stuff that 99% of people would never even come close to understanding. Seriously, did the writers really think that people, kids, this is a cartoon, anime or not, would understand all that science mumbo jumbo? I tried my best to let it all sink in about the Red Mist story plot, but once the show started having minute-long scenes of literally a conversation in Messenger about all this outlandish science, the story for Singular Point had officially lost me. Now that's not saying that I would have wanted them to go a different route with the story altogether. They could have kept the whole Red Mist thing and just made it much more easy for, everybody to follow instead of trying to mind screw everyone. All they really had to say was that the red mist is a strange anomaly that is creating these monsters and it could destroy the planet if not stopped, and then just had Jet Jaguar fight monsters and the show would actually be what fans wanted it to be. Unfortunately, the majority of the show was just an overabundance of characters that all wanted to talk about nonsense all the time. I kid you not, this is probably not even an exaggeration, at least 75% of the airtime for Singular Point was over-the-top try-hard exposition, guys. But I want to navigate away from the story for Singular Point so I don't start sounding like a YouTuber from back in 2016. Some of you understand that. As annoyingly hard to follow as the writing was, the characters in Singular Point were likable enough. I tend to have a hard time relating or liking many characters from animes, and that trend continued, but at least I didn't hate any of the characters. The only real issue I found with the characters, well, is that there was just way too damn many of them. Mei and Yun were the clear main characters from the very first episode. The few characters around them, like the buff guy and the old man, were great at being cool and wacky side characters that helped our heroes on their missions. And in my opinion, that's where they should have stopped with the characters. By the end of the series, there were over a dozen characters that had time spent on them when that time should have been put towards making the main 5 or 6 characters, more special. Now, this show had a real good chance at assembling a cast and crew that was up to the standards of the epic animes from the 90s and early thousands. But in my opinion, the creators really ended up dropping the ball on all that towards the end of the series, sadly. The show really did have some good vibes to it. The direction of the anime was a good choice for a Godzilla series. The traditional 2D character models molded well with the more 3D looking monsters, and from time to time, we really were treated to some epic visuals. The main characters were a little goofy looking and it made them hard to take seriously or for them to seem believable, but this is an anime and that is the norm for that world, I get that. The random soldiers or civilians were all fine looking to me, and they brought a tone of the real world into this otherwise cheesy sci-fi theme of a show. Let's not overlook the sound design and music for Singular Point. Easily some of the best parts of the show is when the thundering classic Godzilla theme started to bellow out as we saw the G-Man slowly approach. The sound and look of all the destruction in Singular Point was just so good. And when it all came together, Singular Point became a much better show for that small moment of time. Most importantly though, all the monsters and creatures were really well made. The creative liberties with the classic Toho monsters didn't bother me at all, and even Godzilla with his 4 forms that are all very much unique and new did not harm the series for me. And on that note, sorry to take so long, let's talk about Godzilla. If you want to learn more about the G-Man in detail in Singular Point, feel free to go watch some of our latest videos on the King of the Monsters, but for the review's sake, I will keep this focused on Godzilla as a whole and how he fit into the series. So the title of this series is Godzilla Singular Point, but it should have been Singular Point starring Godzilla. Yeah, that's how they done the G-Man over here. He really didn't show up till the second half of the season, and even then, he didn't become the, typical Godzilla form that we all know and love until like the last episode or so. This to me was a massive bummer, mostly because I actually really like this take on the monster, even though he was a slight ripoff of Shin Godzilla. The 4 forms of Godzilla surprisingly worked out much better than I originally thought when I first learned that the G-Man was going to have evolutions throughout the series. Regardless of the form, the show was fantastic at letting you know that this is Godzilla. The music and overall just badassery spewing from Godzilla was all you needed to know that this is the big cheese of the monsters. I would have loved to have seen more Godzilla, but when he did come onto the show, he did his Godzilla thing perfectly. That's my cat. His physical attacks were brutal and without hesitation. And let's not forget about his epic atomic blasts from his last 3 forms. So overall, I was really pleased with the Godzilla in Singular Point, even though he was kind of done wrong and not enough time was spent on him, and that he was kind of a ripoff of Shin Godzilla and Godzilla Earth. They definitely were inspired by their last takes on the monster for Singular Point's design. Whether you are an anime fan or a Godzilla fan, Godzilla Singular Point does have enough goods in it to make it at least worth watching once. The anime style is clean and nostalgic, the monsters are fantastic, and the characters are good enough. The monster scenes are intense and usually result in some surprisingly brutal death scenes that are a good step for the franchise to take. The show was easygoing and wasn't overly dramatic and serious like a lot of shows have aimed for in recent times. Godzilla Singular Point really did feel like a classic take on the monster, and I feel like Toho fans will really appreciate that. But that doesn't negate from the horribly boring and overzealous science exposition that at the end of the day made this show much less enjoyable. You know, I hate to say this, but it felt like a chore watching Singular Point as the series went on, just like it did with the Godzilla anime trilogy, and that is the single worst thing a viewer can feel on any show, movie, video game, any form of entertainment. You're not supposed to feel bored and like you're doing work. Even now, after watching this series, researching the series, talking with a bunch of people, I still have no idea what's going on in this show. And after looking around the community, it's almost like that's like a big joke here, and I hate seeing the word joke with my big G-Man lizard, you know? I won't spoil it, but Singular Point ends on a massive cliffhanger that no doubt shows that a season 2 is probably going to happen. Whether this series does well enough to warrant that or not now is yet to be known, but if another season is greenlit, I hope it focuses less on trying to sound so smart and more on the monsters and characters and bringing them to the forefront where they belong. So in closing thoughts here, if you are a Godzilla fan, an anime fan, or just someone who likes to do calculus for fun, Godzilla Singular Point is definitely worth watching at least once. It's Godzilla at the end of the day, and there are still a lot of cool scenes in it. But if you aren't any of those things, well, I hate to say this because I root for anything Godzilla to succeed, but you probably won't find much enjoyment with this series. Remember guys, this is all just my opinion. I don't claim to be a professional reviewer, whatever that is these days. But I am a massive fan of Godzilla and giant monsters, and I just feel like Godzilla Singular Point did the big G-Man wrong here. Sucks to say this, but I was a little underwhelmed and thought Singular Point was going to be much more enjoyable for me. I give Godzilla Singular Point a D+. Alright residents, so what do you think about Godzilla Singular Point? Your opinion may be different than mine, and that's just fine. You don't have to argue or anything, but, you know, feel free to discuss more down in the comments. Just please be civil. I hope you all enjoyed this review and, well, seeing my face throughout the entirety of the video. If you want to see more videos like this, just let me know down in the comments. Seriously everyone, thank you all for your time, and I will see you in the next one. Real quick though, this right here is my Dinobot figure. So a lot of you probably seen the Optimus Primal news recently about the new Transformers movie coming out where it's kind of focused on Beast Wars. I don't know that much about it yet, but I figured I'd share this classic toy that I've had for 20 plus years now with you guys, so pretty cool. And stay tuned, we may do some Transformers videos. Al and I both love Beast Wars, so if this new Transformers Primal or whatever it's called is, you know, worth a damn, we may do some videos on it.